In today's world, no one's just going to hand you money. So at a lot of businesses, especially in America, right, the culture is that you have to push for more money because no one's just going to give it to you. If they can get all of your work and all of your talent for less money, they're definitely not going to pay you. That's in their best interest, right? They're not looking out for your best interest. So that's why you have to advocate for yourself. All right, little T. Today, we're talking about money.
Hippie, my favorite.
Well, actually, we're going to talk about raises, which is technically a form of money. And it's the best kind of money because it means you're going to get more of it.
We love that.
So I know you haven't gotten a raise yet.
Absolutely not.
So you haven't gotten to experience this bliss quite yet. And sometimes it's bliss, sometimes it's a slap in the face. But basically, when you get a raise, you know, your salary or your hourly wage or whatever it is, it's going to permanently increase. And there's kind of a bunch of different ways it could happen, right? So you have merit-based raises. This is when it's based on your individual performance, whatever you contribute to the company, or maybe like a lot of achievements that you've had this year. So remember what we said about bragging about yourself. Those big bragging moments really come into play here with the merit-based raises. Then you have cost of living adjustment, COLA for short. This is not really a raise in the sense of, you've probably heard people talk over the past years of how much inflation has gone up, but salaries have not gone up at the same amount.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
For sure.
So
I've seen it on TikTok.
Yeah, there it is. Boom. So if the price of everything is going up because of inflation, right? Let's say it goes up 5%. But then your salary only increases 1%. You're screwed.
Hate your energy, yeah. It's giving, I need another job.
Exactly. So that's what a lot of the pain is that a lot of people are facing these days. Then you have a promotion raise. So this is like you get the next big job. They're going to throw in some extra coin for it. In some cases, they may not give you extra coin for it. That's a red flag. We'll get into that in the promotions episode, which is coming up. And then you have the market adjustment raise. So sometimes if you have a really competitive job, or let's say like everybody in a space or industry specifically in that market, kind of you see an increase in the pay. Some companies will increase your salary to align your pay with the market standard. This is mainly because they don't want to lose you, and they know
I think they do that at Chili's.
Oddly specific.
They
got that triple dipper money, I bet.
Bro, facts. Well, Jerry was going to apply there, and we saw that they would, you know, if you're working at a job, I think they would pay you a little more, pay a little extra.
That makes sense? I believe it. Yeah, so some places do that. They adjust the amount of pay. Where you work, they don't do that. And then, of course, you have like equity and stock-based raises. This is obviously bigger for public companies, and it's a way where you can kind of get paid without having this same burden of tax up front. And so what companies will do is they'll give you more stock options or restricted stock units or even some equity grants. And that's going to happen when you're either A, public company, or B, a startup. And you kind of just get more money, but not directly. So it's nice-ish, but it's not filling your wallet.
We hate that.
Yeah. Then you've got different forms of raises. So some places will do it just like as a percentage increase. That's pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes you get like a fixed dollar amount. So right now you make, what, $13?
$13.50 an hour. Don't forget my 50.
That's big. So let's say, you know, like a fixed dollar increase could be like 14. Right? That'd be nice. Or if you have a salary.
50 cents?
Hey, man. Back in OG John's day, that's a loaf of bread.
Bro. We're just dropping all types of lore.
Dude, Easter eggs. Easter eggs for season 2. Okay, so, yeah. But if you have like a salary, they might do, here's, you know, $5,000 flat, which when you look at it from the POV of a monthly salary, that's only a couple $100. So it's really not much of a raise, and you should definitely do the math and see what percentage you got increased, because you can often fight for more sometimes if there's money. Sometimes you're going to see, instead of getting a raise, they're just going to give you a fat bonus. Suspicious. Keep your eyes locked if that happens. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also suspicious.
How's that suspicious?
Just because if you're only getting paid a certain amount up front, like a bonus instead of a raise, but you earned a raise, right? Like let's say you're doing more work or your job has become harder or you've taken on more responsibility. If they give you a spot bonus, it's kind of like a consolation prize and they're not really acknowledging the total work and contribution you've made to the business.
I see.
Right?
Your paper trail that you need to be keeping.
Yes, your paper trail of all the successes that you have and everything you contribute to the company will help you convey this. I'm not saying a spot bonus isn't great, right? But if you're getting a spot bonus in lieu of a raise or they're just trying to give you cash up front, it's usually because they just want you to shut up. At least from the sidebars that I've seen. Now I could be wrong, but at least in my experience. Okay. Another thing is you have, just like I mentioned, the stock or equity compensation, which is really going to be grants, or you have stock options. I won't get too far into this because it's kind of complex, but if you have a startup, for example, you can get options in that business. So you won't get founder shares. Founder shares are like at the very beginning when you have 100% of a business. There's a certain percentage of founder shares that can be given, but there are options within the business that you can get equity in. I've seen, for example, I was offered once like a K2 partnership, which is basically where you get a percentage of profits going forward. So 100% of the company's profits are divvied up between all these people, and then you get an option within that. So there's a lot of different ways it could look, but that's kind of the general sense of how it goes. Now, if we get into what happens when you get a raise or how you get a raise, right? There's a couple different ways because I think this is what everybody wants to know. One, you have a performance review. This is pretty common, happens maybe annually, depends on the company, but usually this is, I would say, the more traditional way that people encounter raises in their career. And you have a really great review. We just talked about performance reviews. That's why we're kind of getting into this. This is one of those good outcomes that you can see. You hit all your goals, you achieved everything they needed, boom. Next time, you might find yourself missing a raise, but you feel like you deserve it. And that's when you're going to find yourself asking for a raise proactively. So this requires a little thought, but it can be done very eloquently. And when you're outside of a cycle where a company normally assesses to give you a raise or not, you can put together basically a case. It's like, hey, here's everything I did. Here's everything I've contributed. Here's all the money I made you, ideally, is one of those points that you make. And you can tell them, like, I deserve a higher salary because of this. And sometimes, kind of what we talked about before with market rates, if you're making substantially less than peers or other people in the market, you can do something about that, right? You can go to them, you can show them data. I've had employees do this before, bring me a bunch of data, show me what standards are, show me other salaries at other companies, and they just proactively ask for the raise.
Well, is there a right or a wrong time to ask for a raise? Or is it just kind of...
I think if you're always looking for a right time to advocate for yourself, you're never going to find one.
I suppose, so you just ask when you feel is necessary.
I think that if you, let's say you haven't gotten a raise in over a year, maybe it's been 2 years, right? It seems like it's time to reassess things. Now, it could be that you do the exact same job, none of your responsibilities have changed, nothing you do at work is different. Then I don't know if you have the justification to ask for a raise. But if you're putting together a case on here's why you should give me more money, and you have a decent amount of information and reasons for them to give you more money, it's time.
Yeah. Okay.
But it can be a very scary thing to do.
Yeah.
Right? People are afraid that, they might be treated differently if they ask for more. And at the end of the day, the worst that they can say is no. And I think there's certain ways that you can go about asking for a raise that can change the dynamic. Like if you say, I want this much money, can you give me this much money? They might hit you with a hard no, right?
Right.
But if you were to phrase it, I want to make this much money and I believe based on my effort, I deserve this much. Can you help me put together a plan to get there? Your manager is going to have a hard time saying no to that.
Right. Okay.
Right? Okay, more ways. Obviously, you got promoted. Maybe my favorite way is you receive a competing job offer. So I'll get into this when I tell my own personal stories. But what a lot of people do is they'll apply for other jobs. If they get that job, they'll bring that job offer to their current company and they'll kind of give their company an opportunity to match the same offer.
Oh, Chili's. At Chili's. Kind of not really, but you know.
Maybe. We don't know.
Same vibe. Same vibe.
Yeah, definitely. Another one is just if sometimes companies do internal reviews to check certain salaries. It's very hard to advocate for yourself. So there are some people out there who have never advocated for a raise. And honestly, in today's world, no one's just going to hand you money. So at a lot of businesses, especially in America, right? The culture is that you have to push for more money because no one's just going to give it to you. If they can get all of your work and all of your talent for less money, they're definitely not going to pay you. That's in their best interest, right? They're not looking out for your best interest. So that's why you have to advocate for yourself. In some other cultures, there might be more, merit-based association with how they pay their employees. But at the end of the day, like, it's whoever screams the loudest and, taunts their amazing achievements across the boardroom. That's always going to get all the eyes following them.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have just pay equity assessments from companies, or when they do COLA, that cost of living adjustment that I mentioned. And then, of course, you can always negotiate additional raises if you do an internal transfer, if you do a lateral move. So basically, it's not a promotion, but you move from one department to another department. Technically, it's a new role, so you can start to negotiate a raise. So what to expect when you're going through this process? Well, obviously, it all kicks off with either A, a performance review, or B, your request. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend for your request that you just keep it to facts. If you cannot make a case for why you should get a raise and convince yourself, then you're probably not ready to send in that request, right? Once you've submitted it or once you've had a great review, now you're going to have your manager step into play. So now it's in your manager's hands. And they are the ones that are going to advocate for you, whether it be recommending a raise to leadership, or they might be submitting the paperwork, because some managers in some cases are told by leadership, hey, you can give 2 people raises of 4% or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And the rest of your team gets no raises. So that happens sometimes. And at that point, a manager just gets to decide who, and they get to push the paperwork. If this is an out of cycle request where they don't have all that information, then they're going to have to bubble up a recommendation. They're going to have to make a request to HR, and they're going to kind of have to push it forward. Mm-hmm. Then you've got budget reviews. It goes up a layer. You've got HR and finance stepping in to make sure that the raise is doable money-wise, making sure what timing to set it in, when does it start. Typically, when you're talking about a raise, if you're given a raise, they're going to tell you when it's into effect. If you're requesting a raise, all of this review has to happen before you're either approved or denied.
Okay.
So then you go into approval, and leadership gives their final sign-off. And then, of course, it gets communicated downward. So it went all the way up. Decision was made. It goes all the way down, back to you. You get told you're getting a raise. You get told you're not getting a raise. And then you go from that. Right? And typically, when you get told you're having a raise, the next pay cycle is when it goes into effect. In some cases, though, I think it's important to remember that if you're getting a raise proactively and you didn't ask for it, a lot of times this decision was made a long time ago, so there's not much you can do in the moment to push for more. But raises are typically, I want to say, anywhere from 5 to 10%. 10% is a great raise. I think on average, they're probably closer to 3 to 6% annually. And COLA is usually 1 to 2%. So keep that in mind. You know, you're not going to get crazy raises every single time. Okay, little T. Now I get to tell you my T. All right, for boss POV.
Dropping lore.
Okay. So I have had some crazy situations happen to me in the regard of raises. Mm-hmm. One time, I was giving an employee a promotion and a raise. And I'll never forget it because I gave them a 20% raise. As I just said, right? Average is like maybe 10%. Like 10%'s nice. 10%'s good. Usually 10% is if you're moving up a job. Right?
You gave him 20%.
I gave
pretty good.
It was a sexy raise. And here's the thing. As soon as I told them that they got the raise and they got the promotion, the first question out of this employee's mouth was, how do I get to the higher end of this pay bracket? So
greedy.
I understand you must advocate for yourself, but there is a time and a place. And not even a full minute after you received a 20% raise asking for
another
when you're going to get more money or how to get more money is a pinch off-putting. Now, I will never...
How much was this person getting paid, though? Like, pretty...
I think it
like
was back
nice.
then. I mean, it was like an entry-level position. I think we went from like 50K to around like 65K a year annually, almost like over 70. But I'm not saying it was a ton of money. That's obviously why I gave a 20% raise, because it was much earned. There was a lot of adjustment. But in any scenario, the minute after you are given a raise, it is not appropriate to ask for how you are going to get more money. She could have waited at least until the end of the conversation, even. Or perhaps in our next meeting would have been nice. But to come at me really hot, where like, you know, as a manager, you get really excited to give raises.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I can imagine.
Right? Giving people more money is such a fun job to get to do. And so being in that position, you're like excited as a manager. And I'll never forget it because she hit me with that question. I was like, damn. Like here I was thinking I'm like doing this awesome thing. And I'm like, you know, I advocated for my employees and I made this ability, like, you know, I made it possible for this to happen. And then boom, slap in the face.
Here's another question. Have you ever had to cut somebody's budget before? Like,
oh, like give someone like less money?
Yeah.
Oh, a pay, what is it? Oh.
Those exist?
Quit. Well, that's the thing. You might need to quit. No, it depends. Okay, so I have seen it happen before. I have personally never had to go to someone and say, hey, I'm taking 10% of your salary because you suck. Bye. Now, what I have seen happen is, for example, like during COVID, when some companies were doing really, really, really poorly, what they would do is instead of laying off a ton of people and, you know, having to fire people where they make no income, they would cut back. So it does happen.
No.
I've never personally seen it to where, oh, you get a pay deduction. I have heard stories of people basically kind of getting put into a room and being, in a general sense, told, your performance hasn't been spectacular. The new pay for this role is this amount. Would you be willing to accept this pay for your role? And then essentially if you say no, you're like quitting in a sense. I've heard, I shouldn't say, I've never seen that.
That's
I've heard,
toxic.
It's, you
So
know.
they're basically lying. The new pay, this crappy pay, I would actually blow up and die.
Yeah, I mean, it's not chill, that's for sure. I think also in those scenarios where you have the case of, you know, like COVID, right? It happened a lot in COVID, I should say. That one's a little different because a lot of people were like, yeah, I'd rather have, you know, a 15-20% lower salary than having zero salary at all in the middle of a pandemic with a horrible hiring market. So you do see it though. Hate to break it to you.
What happened to all the little service workers though, like in the, you know, retail and everything?
Well, like, those jobs are usually minimum wage.
I know, but like in some parts it didn't really affect. Like I wonder if they let go a lot of people during COVID. I wouldn't know.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of places closed down, right? I mean, even
I don't
today, like
remember,
you
'cause
see
COVID
things.
was so long ago. Oh my gosh.
It really wasn't, but
It was.
you see things like, for example, retail stores. I mean, people had less income because there was less money circulating. And that's why the government tried to give out checks because they were like, oh, if we stimulate the economy, we're going to stimulate more things.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We could get into econ another time, but like in a general sense, right? They say this a lot, you know, the current state of our economy is really struggling because the average growth of pay and salaries is not growing as fast as inflation. And so what's happening is people have a lower purchasing power. Having a lower purchasing power means people are broke effectively.
Real.
And when you're broke, you don't buy shit.
Facts.
You ain't got money to buy shit. Yeah, some people take out credit, not exactly a great idea. But in a general sense, I think when it comes to getting like a raise and how you go about getting them and what happens when you either A, get one or don't get one, if you're getting in a position where you might be losing part of your salary, it's either time to look for a new job, because that's not going to be a sustainable point, or reevaluate.
Facts, yeah.
Yeah, stay locked in. But yeah, no, that's happened to me once. Okay, another scenario that happened. So I one time had an employee, so we were negotiating the terms of their next role, and it was a promotion.
Oh.
And I've never had someone come to me with so much data in my life. And I just was stunned. I was impressed. I was slightly intimidated, you could say. And I mean, there was a spreadsheet. There was math.
A spreadsheet. Oh my gosh.
There was a spreadsheet. There was math. There was comparison across different markets because I ran an international team. So they took U.S. rates, Belarusian rates, and Polish rates. And they came to me with 3 separate countries worth of data to then backwards calculate into their own average.
Holy cow. How long did that conversation take?
Well,
Too long.
I kind of was just like, my current face I'm making right now, which is one of shock and minimal words, was the exact reaction I had when they showed it to me. I was both impressed and I was really proud. The funny thing with this specific employee is we were always colleagues that I begged to join my team. In many ways, I like to joke that he was like my work husband for a while. and like pretty much my whole career at this place. Anyways, and when he wasn't working on my team, I used to push him so hard, like, dude, you have to advocate for yourself. Like, you have to push for your
And
raises.
he did. To you.
And he did to me. I was the first person he did it with. And I was just sitting there like, damn, I did it to myself. Because
You really
before he
did.
joined my team, I think he went like 3 years without a proper raise evaluation and salary evaluation and just had like not said anything for a little over 2 years.
Dang.
And then he right? And so then the minute he joined my team, it was like, here's my spreadsheet, here's all the math, here's all of the research, here's similar roles that I found, here's all of these documents, and then here's the big whammy, here's everything I've contributed in the short amount of time that I've already been working with your team. I was like, damn. Just, you know, you can't
Putting
like,
Kiana to work.
I mean, you can't hate the player, bro.
Yeah, you
Can't hate
can't.
the player.
That's
Gotta hate the
crazy.
game. And he played the
Facts.
game right. And he got every penny he wanted. So I don't know.
What a
I
guy.
suggest following similar suit, you know? So that was another crazy time. Yeah, but in general, I think from your manager's point of view, like your manager loves giving raises too. Makes our job way easier. You know what's not fun? What's not fun is telling someone they don't get a raise. I have had to do that. Where you know, maybe their performance wasn't up to par, or perhaps, you know, they were super underperforming, and we'll talk about what that looks like in future episodes. But in a general sense, I had to go to them and say, you know, you survived a year at this company, but you're not getting any more money, not a COLA adjustment, not a salary increase, not even a spot bonus, nada.
Has someone
And
quit
that
on you when you
sucks.
told them that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the people I've had to do that to were not surprised. And it's because as a manager, I would always continuously give feedback when I saw problems, right? And so I think the people who weren't getting the raises, like I said, in some companies, you know, you have a team of 10 and leadership will tell you 2 people get raises,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Which
And it
sucks.
sucks. It sucks for your manager too. Oh, and keep in mind, your manager's boss probably got told only one manager gets a raise. Right? And they're sitting here fighting to the death with their group of peers, trying to get that one raise that's available for the group. So, you know, even on a team of rock stars, sometimes the corporate budget is fighting against you, which brings us into our next segment, which is misconceptions.
Oof.
So I think one of the biggest misconceptions out there is raises are purely based on merit and performance. I remember I used to have this crazy idea when I started working that if I worked hard enough and I kicked ass at my job, money would find me. It did not find me. I had to fight for it, right? And there was an aspect of it did find me in the sense of once I advocated for myself and I vocalized all of my achievements, all my accomplishments, how much I was contributing to the business, you know, all that good, sexy stuff. Yes, I did get to the money. But it actually wasn't tied to an annual schedule. It wasn't tied to merit and performances. It was a combination of 2 things, which was 1, I kicked ass and talked about it. But the biggest one was 2, the business was booming. AKA, they had money to actually give me what I wanted. So merit does play a role, right? Compensation decisions are usually influenced by merit, but they are more so influenced by company budgets, internal politics, timing, and sometimes even external economic stuff. So, for example, during COVID, a lot of companies, I mean, a lot, like even the big guys, Chase, Bank of America, Charles Schwab, all these guys, right? They froze hiring and promotions and raises. So basically, if you had a job and you're getting paid a certain amount, time just stopped. Let's say that company had a usual annual review system where you would typically find out if you get a raise or if you get COLA or if you get any things. Paused. Wasn't happening. And for a lot of companies, it didn't happen for like a year. I've also heard of some companies, you know, we're in this current stage of tariffs and all of this unknown going on between like trade wars between the US and China and like all of this crazy stuff happening. I've heard of some companies who have been floating ideas of having to do pauses or holds on raises and holds on additional money. And these are those economic factors or kind of external things going on where a company proactively is like, okay, we're going to reserve money. Some of it's good, right? Because it's better for them to have money and be able to pay you your salary and versus like running out and not even being able to pay you your wages. But it still sucks.
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah, exactly. No, COVID was rough. Being an adult in COVID sucked because everybody was getting laid off or having issues with, I don't know. I know, you know, my bestie Ryan, right? He applied for so many jobs and he was in final interviews with so many jobs that just got frozen. Like he was potentially negotiating to take his next job and it just got frozen and he couldn't even get that next job.
What happened when it unfroze? He got all the jobs?
No, they started over. They started the process all over again. Because while it was frozen, right, the company still operated. So then what happened is a lot of businesses who had all of these positions open reassessed. They were like, do we actually need all these positions? Like, we kind of did it with less people already. You know, and you see this happen a lot because the people who make these decisions don't do the frickin' work, right? Like Victor, someone on his team left. and they were going to post the role. Victor's been doing so much work. There's not enough people on his team. He's been, boots on the ground. He's been crushing it, right? But then get this. HR was trying to eliminate the role.
That's messed up. Oh,
Right.
Or BBO.
And so they advocated, they did all the things, and, it got posted again and everything's all in well. But at the end of the day, those things happen in business. They're always trying to find ways to cut costs. So remember, raises and that type of any money exchange is never purely based on what's right and what's fair.
Yeah.
Because life isn't fair.
No.
So what's the right way to think about it? Well, you need to understand the many factors that are outside of your control that are going to impact whether or not you get a raise. And it's not entirely up to you. Yes, you have a huge impact, right? You have to advocate for yourself. You have to push for everything. But you don't have the final say.
Mm-hmm.
A person that's probably 4 positions above you has the final say, and they don't even know what you do day to day unless you scream loud enough. So how do we take action? Well, number 1, building strong relationships. Those decision makers at the top, you want them to know who you are. You want them to see you. You definitely want to advocate for yourself around them, whether it's HR, your manager's manager, or even just your boss. Building good relationships with them. Can you imagine when your manager gets told, oh, out of the 10 people on your team, only 2 people are going to get the raise? Well, if you don't have a good relationship with them, I can already guarantee you're not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not worried about maintaining an already bad relationship.
Facts.
Right?
Yeah.
And they probably don't want to work with you that much anyway. So they're like, maybe they'll leave. Who knows?
Oof.
If you're besties with HR, that means when those decisions happen and you're not in the room, and maybe even your boss isn't in the room, HR can advocate for you.
So kiss lots of arse is what I'm hearing. Wow.
I mean, business is all about kissing arse.
I don't like arse that much, but,
Gonna get
money
used to
is
it,
money.
girl. Money's money. Okay, another one is just pay attention to the company's financial health. As I mentioned to you, I got 6 or 7 raises in the course of 3 years almost. 3 or 4 years.
Jesus.
I got my first 2 raises within 6 months.
Bruh.
I was hired. No, it wasn't even I was a tryhard. I was hired at $65K. And then I kicked ass with some clients. I kicked ass with some work, right? And then I went back and these other companies were trying to hire me. I didn't even really divulge offers or anything, but they immediately gave me 20 more K. I was like, chill vibes. I like it. And then 5 months after that, I ended up starting a new department. So it was like, here's another 10K. Here's another 15K. So my career trajectory isn't the same as everyone, but what is important is that company financial health. If you're growing the business with the business, it's much more likely for you to get paid more. And that's exactly what I was doing. My contributions to the bottom line of the company was very visible. And even though it sounds like I was doing great getting a 15K raise or whatever, for reference, they were making over 200K on my back. So the return on their investment in me was much higher, right, than whatever I was getting out of it. And then another one, of course, is just corporate priorities. Sometimes you're going to see instances where companies start investing in a new solution or a preventative measure or new technologies or something like that. If they're investing in a lot of stuff, that means they're not investing in you.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind. And of course, last but not least, if no raise is possible, you can always advocate for yourself in other ways. So there's other forms of compensation. As I mentioned, right? Maybe it's a spot bonus because a company can't give you a permanent raise, but maybe it is something that they can give you at the moment. Like I said, it can be a double-edged sword if you get one of those. Of course, there's also stock. Maybe there's more holidays. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of start to negotiate value. It all just depends on
PTO.
We love our PTO. Okay. Misconception number 2. A cost of living adjustment is a real raise. I put this one out there because I think cost of living adjustments are the thing that your company will give you proactively without you necessarily having to advocate or ask for it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's not a raise.
No.
A raise increases your purchasing power. COLA usually puts you flat to inflation. I would say more often than not, you still lose money and have lower purchasing power because inflation can be so high that COLA cannot keep up. Right? But it's not an actual raise. So if you've been getting COLA for the past 4 years and you've managed to take on more responsibilities and do more things, it might be time to advocate, my friend, and type up that email you've been thinking about for a while.
Bro, I saw a TikTok about this guy who emailed. He was asking for a raise.
Right.
And when he asked for the raise, he accidentally typed in an extra zero. And you know what? They paid him that extra zero, dog.
Swag money.
So,
that's what I like to
know
hear.
your worth.
Know your worth. Type
Know
an
your
extra
worth.
zero on accident. What's the worst they could say? Did you really mean $1 million? Be like, oh no,
I
sorry,
thought
there were
you were-
extra zeros.
My keyboard's broken. Maybe I do need that mail.
So basically, the right mentality is treat COLA separately from the merit increases, right? And still advocate for your performance-based raises. And when it comes to taking action, type the extra zeros in your email.
Type the extra zeros, dog. Know your worth.
Know your worth. And even if you don't know your worth, guess your worth.
Guess
The worst they can tell you is no.
You
right?
just close your
Like-
eyes and type some numbers up.
Realistically, the person who asked me for a raise immediately after I gave him a raise, I was impressed with the balls. Now, did it suck? Def. But like the ability to turn around and immediately kind of request more is impressive. Like most people won't do that, right? I mean, I ended up working with that person for multiple years after that because it didn't deter me from who they were. I was a little impressed. I was a little thrown back. And I would not recommend to take that strategy every single time, right? Because it can give you an ungrateful perception.
Unappreciative.
Right? Unappreciative. Like I had to fight for certain things to make that happen, truly, because leadership did not want to pay that person that much.
Oof.
But at the end of the day, nice. Advocate for yourself. I don't know. Can't hate the player, man. Gotta hate the game.
Fact.
Okay, so taking action, add your zeros. If you receive COLA, thank your employer, but remember, you need to reframe these conversations around the value you add. And if you're continuing to add more value in the company, a true raise shouldn't be far from you, right? And then prepare to differentiate your case. I guess we've talked about it a couple times, right? But you need to be keeping track of what you're achieving and what you're doing
Paper
for a
trail.
business. Paper trail. But also financial trail. If there is any way for you to tie your contributions to the company into dollars, like I remember I negotiated a contract for this company that I was working for at one point in time. This was in my like first 2 months of working there. I immediately saved them 40 grand. Keep in mind,
Dang, bro.
that's twice as much as my first raise. I immediately saved them 40 grand from a 30-minute call with one of their vendors. Just negotiating. So keep track of that, right? Because when we had conversation, I'm like, dude, I just saved you 40 grand. Where's my cut?
Facts.
You know what I mean? All right. So red flags. Some companies might give you vague promises, but no timeline. They'll say something like, oh, we'll revisit this later. Or, oh, I can't talk about this right now. Ask me about it on a future date. It's stalling. Okay. And when they're making these vague promises of, hey, we're going to talk about it, when XYZ thing happens, but they don't actually be specific about what XYZ is. Maybe they say like, oh, well, whenever we see new clients come in, what does that mean? New clients, like how many new clients? 100 new clients? One new client, right?
What does that mean?
So remember, this is a stalling tactic.
Ugh.
Just remember, they're probably going to forget. They might give up. Or even if someone's stalling, like a manager stalling, they could be leaving the business, right? So whenever this future date comes into play, they could be gone. So
That's shady.
yes. Proper commitments have clear next steps. They're going to have a specific timeline or at least a specific date, right? They're going to tell you, hey, we can revisit this in 2 months because I need XYZ reports to be finished by finance and yada, yada, yada. Another big red flag is just more delays and excuses. Now, I've seen this happen sometimes. I feel bad for some managers because keep in mind, a lot of the times when you're working with a middle manager being not leadership, not an individual contributor, just someone sitting in between all of the fun.
Mm-hmm.
They are just thrown information that they have to tell you. So it is still a red flag, but remember your manager isn't the one emotionally delivering this all the time, right? Like they are just told something by leadership and they're regurgitating it. But I've heard companies say like, oh, we're restructuring how raises are paid out. Bullshit. Oh, this cycle has been postponed. Maybe not BS, but still slightly suspicious. Postponed till when? Postponed why? I don't know. There's good questions to be asking. Stay curious.
So
trust no one. With a paper trail.
With your...
Now,
Exactly.
big red flag is if you get a promotion and you don't get a raise. Now, we're going to talk more about this in the promotion episode coming up next. But when you're doing more work, if they're not adequately paying you, you are paying them.
Mm-hmm.
So you're giving away the milk for free. Why would anybody buy the cow? Different use of that, but I think it works here.
Coming from a girl who is lactose intolerant, I may add.
Oof. Don't out me, bro.
Okay.
Yeah, not me having yogurt earlier. Okay, anyways. Across the board, sometimes what companies will do is they're going to give little raises to everyone. So that's like
how much
everyone,
is little?
Like a 1%. Now, this is typically going to be separate from COLA because COLA is usually something like this, right? Like where it's like a pretty flat, small percentage across the board. But this is where we say like, oh, everybody on the team is getting a 2% raise this year. It's lazy.
Yeah.
All right. It's lazy. It means they're not evaluating your performance. So honestly, you should be doing less is what that means. You should be working a lot less hard. But at the end of the day, it can also be super demoralizing. I remember I had like one poor performer on my team at one point, and boy, oh boy, did he bring down the energy of the group. Truly.
Dang.
Like, I didn't even realize it because I wasn't in the day-to-day weeds and I only found out kind of like a little late. But boy, oh boy, brought down the vibes and brought down people's morale. Because if you see someone working half as hard as you and getting paid the same amount and getting the same raise as you, my question is, why are we working so hard?
Right. Facts.
Right? Okay. Another one.
At that point, yeah.
Toxic
That's hard.
gratitude culture. This kind of gives OG John vibes, right? Anytime I complain to my grandfather about work being tough or something bad happening, he hits me with the classic, you should be grateful you have a job. So many people don't have a job. And although it's true to a degree, right? I am grateful to be employed. I am grateful to have an income. It's also an extremely manipulative response. And all they're trying to do is shut down legitimate conversations about your comp. So healthy
Toxic.
cultures are going to welcome it. Super toxic. I mean, that's why it's
How do
called
you
toxic
even
gratitude.
Reply to that, like when they say stuff like that.
I am grateful for a job, but I've been working very hard and I believe I deserve more compensation. And I'd like to open the door to discuss that with you.
Pretty good.
That was off the fly. I think truly though, like they're going to hit you, and I'll be realistic. If they're hitting you with that, there might be some other sentiment there, right? Like it may just be a toxic company and no matter what you say, it's really not going to like go well. But at the end of the day, if you have data, if you have backup of how much you're contributing and they're sitting there shutting you down,
quit. 2 weeks. Right on the desk right now.
that's wild. Maybe get another job before you quit. But definitely start looking at your other options. It's time to reevaluate.
Well, you know your worth. You know you're definitely going to get hired somewhere else. Look at all that data you just put on that table. You obviously deserve it.
Your resume's ready. It's stacked. You put it all together, right?
Girl facts. Exactly.
Okay. Another one is raises are tied to unclear or moving targets. I've seen this a couple times where like, oh, if we hit our team goals, then you'll be eligible for a raise. Or you'll get a raise when you hit your goals. But then they change your goals.
That's not like what we got. That's happening at my store.
Yeah, for sure. Dude, they're stalling. For sure. But y'all are like the bottom of the totem pole, so it's like it's much more common.
Yeah.
The moving targets thing, though, part of that too is just bad company leadership. I wouldn't even say it's toxic. Remember, leaders don't know what they're doing most of the time. I think people put a lot of respect and expectation on leaders, and I would argue to say at least half of them are garbage.
Dang. Roasted. Screw all the leaders.
And even if they're not garbage, and let's say they are the golden nugget of leadership, they will still make mistakes. Right? Yeah. They're still going to have failures in their career that are going to down trickle towards you. So at the end of the day, you're going to see these things more often than not. You can't necessarily avoid all of them, but if you're seeing a lot of them, time for some alarms to go off. Okay, continuing on. Maybe you got surprise criticism in your performance review. That's now the reason why you are not eligible for a raise. Typically, as I told you, right? If I told someone they weren't getting a raise, they were not surprised.
Yeah.
It did not come as a shock.
Yeah.
They were not expecting a raise when they went into it. They're glad they got to keep their job. So if it is a surprise to you that you're not getting a raise or all these other tactics, red flag.
Oof.
Now, one of my fan favorites is raises only happen when you threaten to leave. This can either be a culture thing where you can make the whole case, and if they basically ignore you until you get to the point where you're like, all right, I'm going to go look for another job, or you tell them like, I'm ready to quit. And then that's the moment that they turn around and they're like, okay, we'll pay you. Another one, as I mentioned, is you find another job somewhere else, and then that's the only reason they were ever willing to offer you a raise. At that point in time, you're better off going to the other company.
Facts.
Right? Sometimes the only reason you ever do the competitive offer thing, and I actually have a really funny story. Oof, I forgot to mention this. All right. One time I was interviewing somebody amazing. I was super excited to hire this person. And then I gave them an offer, and they came back to me, and they flat out told me, I cannot accept your job offer, but thank you so much because you got me paid so much more at my current job. Swear. Oh, hit my inbox, and I was in dismay.
Oh,
I was flabbergasted.
My God.
I was like, yo, I don't know who raised you in corporate, okay? But you do not tell the other employer that their offer got you the raise that you wanted, all right?
Oh, that's crazy.
Don't do that.
That's wild.
Isn't that wild? It's funny. I wrote that down too, and I just skipped over it. But we got to it.
That's actually crazy. Like, that's actually insane.
You should have seen my face. I went to HR because I was like
said like that though, or was it like more
with a smiley face at the end of it, bro?
Oh,
the smiley face was like rubbing salt in an open wound. I was like, not only did you just confirm to me that I'm not going to have any relief on my team, but then you slapped me in the face and you told me that my offer got you more money, bruh.
Okay, but like, did we at least get like an amount?
No, I didn't get an amount, but I assume they paid him as much as I was offering. I will say one caveat is this person was not from America, so perhaps why the culture was not fully understood of not telling me that this is what they did. But for any of our international listeners, don't frickin' do this. I will never hire that person in my future ever. From like it burn the bridge. Don't burn bridges you don't need to burn, okay? And that was burning a bridge that unnecessarily did not need to be burned. Okay?
That's messed up.
Another thing, big red flag, over-reliance on non-cash perks. So we've all heard the jokes of pizza parties.
Oh, yeah.
You know, if they're hitting you with a pizza party instead of a raise, ask for a return on the pizza, okay? Maybe they'll do like...
It's not that good, bro.
It's not that worth it. And if you don't have
it's
lactate,
not.
you can't even eat it. Do they bring the lactate? That's a better question.
Yeah, maybe if they provide the lactate, I might consider it. But if not,
but it better be the
y'all gotta return
Costco
the
size
pizza.
pack. Because I swear if they just bring me a sleeve, I'm going to be pissed. No, I'm kidding. Okay. They might even offer like things like exposure. So sometimes people disguise extra work as exposure or learning. Now, some of it's true.
Sitting
like
in a call.
there's some degree. No, not that kind of exposure. Like the kind of exposure where you can sit in on a board meeting. That is good exposure. That's truly exposure. However, sitting in on a leadership meeting where you have to take notes and you have to do a debrief afterwards, that's extra work. There's a difference. Or sometimes I've even seen companies offer like extra mental health days. Like, oh, you didn't get a raise, but take 2 days off next week. It's like, what?
No PTO?
Yeah, I mean, listen, if they can afford luxuries like pizza and lactate, Costco size, they can afford fair compensation.
Facts. That's
Okay.
fact. Costco pizza, too. Yeah, that's a fact.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
Bro, and
Perks.
then imagine they cut it into little slices like they did in school.
Ooh, the
all
tiny
messed up.
squares.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, that's how they're going to do you. You don't even get to pick out all of your own pizza. No, you get the little bit in one juice packet. That's it.
Oh,
Know
yeah.
your worth.
Know your worth, man. You're more than a square from Costco and a sleeve of lactate, all right? Jeez. Okay. Very
Right.
last red flag, little T. We're going to wrap up this episode. This
All
one's my
right.
favorite. Okay. No transparency around pay. Huge red flag. Huge. And when I say huge, I mean my dumbass lived in no transparency around pay for almost half a decade. All right. I did not understand how I was compensated for a extremely long time. And I directly remember my psycho manager would quite literally pull numbers out of his arse for what my quote unquote bonuses or raise. Like, it was insane. What's amazing is my ADHD pattern recognition helped me get to a point where I could kind of like also see the arbitrary numbers that were coming at me, but there was truly no logic to it. So no transparency around pay is a huge red flag because a couple things. One, it means leadership's being secretive, right? They're gatekeeping how raises and how salary bands are determined. Salary bands are, you know, kind of what I was talking about earlier. I don't remember when, where you basically have a pay scope, right? So you can either get paid, I don't know, anywhere from $70,000 to $100,000 for this role in this level. Remember when we talked about levels at a company, and at different levels there's different pay brackets? So those are what salary bands are. Salary bands are that bracket of pay that you can potentially be paid. So if leadership shares no information like this, it basically leaves you entirely in the dark.
So like
And
just
what-
not telling you anything, like numbers, no nothing.
Yeah. I worked at a company that didn't have performance reviews effectively throughout the business, and there was zero like transparency about how raises were determined or this. I mean, and granted,
So they're
I've
just
also
being mysterious.
in a bad way. And part of mysteriousness here is one, it could be that the company's so small they don't have salary bands yet. Like if you're at a startup of 10 people, there are no salary bands. There are 10 people.
Yeah,
You don't have levels. You know what I mean?
there is no.
Even when you're at a company like 100 people, you might start having some salary bands, but it's like each role and position maybe has 2 people. So it, you know, it's not necessarily hardcore set. I mean, one of the first things I did when I was building my department at this tech company was I set salary bands.
Oh.
I made them up for sure. But like I set them.
I made them up.
and the problem that I had with, I never got it approved by leadership, so I could never share it with my team. But I definitely did it, and I used it on the back end. And then if people would ask, I would kind of show them what was going on in my brain. Very few people ask, though. So remember, also ask.
Yeah.
Right? But I think, listen, if you don't know how you're getting paid, it just leaves so much unknown, and it gives all the power to the company, right? Because if they're not telling how things are done, then they can call favoritism, they can have huge biases. It just makes it super unfair.
Absolutely toxic.
And I think another huge thing, and this isn't, I would say, a huge red flag, because every company does this, but know your rights, okay? Companies will make it seem like you cannot talk about your salary. And that is straight BS, okay? There is a weird culture across the board, everywhere, where people don't talk about how much they make. And the thing is, when you gatekeep said information, you prevent yourself from learning what other people make. So some of those things we talked about, where it was like market adjustment or evaluation across, like your industry or things like that. If you don't talk to people, you're not going to be able to figure out how much they're making. Now, I understand some people, they won't tell you that their salary was $500,000 because they don't want you to think they're rich. I've seen that happen so many times. Fine. Okay. We're not even in the same tax bracket, so it's fine. I don't really need to share. But when you're making like 60K, 70K in that range, like, share. What do you have to lose?
Yeah.
Right? And I remember I had a person I was working with when I worked at a hotel, and they sucked. I just want to say that. Oof. They were garbage. Okay? Oof. I'm not going to name names, but you know who you are. And dude, there were like cubby wars with this person, okay? It went deep. It went deep. And here's the thing. More. One day I was at the computer, and it was like community computer where we checked in guest at the front desk, okay? So nowhere to be storing your personal information, XYZ person, you know who you are. Starts with a T. And I'm not even kidding you, little T. I pulled up their pay stub, and I found out they were being paid $2 more per hour than me, and I lost it. I lost it. Because every single day when I would come into work, I'm not even kidding, I would have complaints about this person.
About the person. Oh, and they were still shady, bro. Yeah,
I would have complaints. I would walk in, and I would have guests like coming at me with all of the things that the person in the morning couldn't solve. And I'm like, dude, I just got here. Give me 5 minutes.
That's how I feel, yeah.
And then I found out she was making $2 more than me, bro. Psh, I stormed the Capitol. I went into the GM's office, and I was like, what is this? All right. And then they tried to tell me some nonsense to my face. So guess what I did? I walked out. And that's how I quit my first job. Snap. Ooh, I was mad. Anyways.
Wow.
Obviously, a company isn't going to be transparent about what other people are paying. Obviously, in some degree, right? There should be some level of transparency. If there's zero transparency, huge red flag. If you find someone's pay stub on your computer and you storm out of the office, I completely understand. I've been there, done that. And I stand by you. Also, I just want to note that my coworker that was also working the front desk that night also stormed out with me. So...
Oh, wow.
It was a spicy night. That was one of my top 10 career moments.
And she still holds a grudge to this day.
Yeah. Lil T, I'm going to talk about that more when we get into the quitting episode of all the ways I've quit, but we'll talk about that another time.
Okay.
All right. Wrap this bad boy up. At the end of the day, a raise is going to reflect your value, right? But in practice, they're often tied to timing and internal politics and economic factors, and most importantly, how you advocate for yourself. Mm-hmm. Hard work definitely helps, but it's not going to be enough on its own. If you're going to wait around for someone to recognize your contributions, you're going to be stuck waiting. Mm-hmm. So, critical to understand what kind of raise you're asking for, how it's awarded, and more importantly, if there's any red flags along your experience that you need to be noting, tracking, and most importantly, documenting.
Maybe true.
Companies that value you aren't going to dodge those conversations. They're not going to move goalposts. They're definitely not going to hand out pizza parties in consolation instead of fair pay. And if they do, it's probably a sign that you need to get your bags and you need to get packing.
Put in that 2 weeks right on the desk. Or you could just be like Kiana and just run in there and then storm out.
It is called at will employment because if I am no longer at will, then I shall leave. So this episode was all about raises, what they are, how they work, how to spot the signs, and how to play the game. In our next episode, we're going to talk more about these positive performance review outcomes with episodes coming on promotions and bonuses. And then we're going to get a little spicy and we're going to talk about separation. So keep in mind what's going on. And until our next session, remember, performance is not the only thing at play here. You are in a game and you are a player. So whether it's a move towards a raise, a bonus, or something bigger, just make sure, Control-Alt-Delete, okay? Play those keys, play that game. If you found this episode helpful, please remember to subscribe, rate, review, and send it to a friend who's also navigating the same workplace. And if you've got a wild story about maybe negotiating a raise or surviving a sketchy bonus scheme, send it in. Go to our website. We might just feature it in an upcoming episode. Until next time, keep your receipts, trust your gut, and never let corporate gaslighting play you. Peace and love.